Chapter 14. Avoid disturbing your environment. This is how to pitch a tent. Number 1, find a good spot. Not too high, too windy, not too low, too wet. Number 2, unfold your tent. Number 3, pound some stakes into the ground. Number 4, follow the directions that came with the tent. Number 5, make some hot chocolate. Number 6, drink the hot chocolate. Number 7, reread the directions. Number 8, pull the stakes out of the ground. Number 9, move them around. Number 10, pound them in again. Number 11, try to remember how you did it 200 years ago when tents didn't come with directions and you could put one up anyway. Number 12, scratch your head. Number 13, rub your chin. Number 14, walk away and work on digging a pit toilet for a while. Number 15, dig hard and fast because your kids are crying and they'd rather die than use a pit toilet. And Annabelle is walking off with some of the tent stuff and doing her own thing. Number 16, repeat steps 3 through 16 until your tent is standing without your kids holding it up. Number 17, stand back and admire. Number 18, go in and check it out. Number 19, don't panic. Number 20, find your way out of the collapsed tent. Number 21, repeat. When our tent was finally up for good, my dad looked pretty beat. In fact, he looked a lot like Calvin's very old bunny with the stuffing coming out. I sure could use a nap, he said, diving head first into the tent. This was good news. It meant that we didn't have to go on a scary hike up a scary mountain. Hooray! But it was also bad news. Dad? I shoved my dad a couple of times. He was safely tucked inside his sleeping bag, snoring. And Annabelle and I were not safely tucked anywhere. Wake up, Dad, I cried. If you snooze, we lose. Growled my dad. That's the problem with my dad. Once he falls asleep, he's as hard to get started as a dead car battery. Annabelle and I were in trouble now. The keeper of the fire had no fire to keep. The keeper of the food had no food to guard. And the keeper of all of us was out like a rocket into outer space. Gulp. Annabelle, I said, I think this means that I'm now the keeper of all of us. Yup, said Annabelle. Let's build traps. How are traps going to help us? Secret trick number 452, said Annabelle. Traps catch monsters and bears. Just when they're about to grab you, oops, they'll trip and dangle, just like that. It sounded good to me, plus Annabelle was amazing at remembering Uncle Dennis's how to make a trap instructions. First, don't disturb nature, said Annabelle. We tiptoed around our campsite, especially around our tent where my dad was sleeping. Second, wash your hands, said Annabelle. We rubbed dirt and sand on our hands. What you doing? Said a voice. It was Bouffoulet. His extra eyes were rolling around. Making traps, I said. Want some help? Asked Bouffoulet. Can you tie triple knots? I said, unpacking the ropes and rubber cords that my dad had packed. Sure, said Bouffoulet. My dad's taught me all sorts of knots and traps, square, overhand, fisherman's. And as for the traps, mangle, tangle, dangle, and strangle. I stopped. He knew them all, just like my Uncle Dennis. Okay, you can help, I told him. First, we showed Bouffoulet how to tie a sapling and make it bend. Then Bouffoulet showed us how to make a snare for something heavy by throwing a cord over a branch of a regular-sized tree and setting it in a spring between 2 branches in the ground. Then we made more traps. After that, we covered our traps with mud and leaves and moss. Check your traps often, I said, finally remembering one of the rules of trap making. It's important to not let anyone be surprised for too long. We sized up the situation. There were so many traps around our camp, but you would never know it. You couldn't see a single one. Uncle Dennis would be proud. Best of all, I felt a little safer, and so did Annabelle. Until I remembered something. Don't traps need bait? I asked. Sure do, said Bouffiolet. When I go fishing with my dad, we always use bait. Without it, the fish won't bite. He's looking for bait now so that we can go fishing. Bait, said Annabelle. What's bait? It's the little thing used to catch something bigger, I said. Bouffiolet, a voice called through the woods. Time to go. There's my dad, said Bouffiolet. He must have found our bait. Gotta run. Then he was gone, and Annabelle and I were left alone with our traps. We looked around at all the traps that we could not see. We used all our senses. Just when I'd about figured it out, Annabelle gasped. How she ever figured it out before I did, I'll never know. We are the bait, she whispered.